back to Appreciate Taste. Today we're going to learn how to fix lobster. A lot of people are kind of a little nervous about fixing lobster, especially if they've never done it before, simply because we've heard so many stories about how hard lobster is to fix. But to be honest with you, it couldn't be easier. And I'm going to show you an easy way to fix a whole lobster. And also we're going to talk about lobster tails and how to fix them and make them look as nice and taste as good as anything you can get in your local seafood restaurant. First, we have this nice big lobster here. There's a couple things that you need to know about a lobster. First off, when you touch the sides of the lobster, the shell should be firm. If you go to a store to pick out your lobster and you notice that the shell is not real firm, that's probably not the lobster you want. A second thing that you'll want to know when you're picking out a live lobster is you want it to be active. If it's a little sluggish, it's not going to be the best lobster for you. You can always tell when you pick up the lobster if it has a lot of movement. This here is a really active lobster. It was more active before I put it on ice. Ice makes it a little sluggish, but this lobster is a great lobster for what we want to do. I've got a nice big pot to put the lobster in. I'm not going to boil the water just yet. I want to put the lobster in the pot before the water starts boiling, and the reason is because I want the water to heat up with the lobster so that the lobster won't tense up when I put it into the water. If you've got the water boiling, the lobster will tense up, and that'll make the meat just a little tougher than if you allow the lobster to relax and kind of heat up with that water. It'll also be kinder for the lobster. The lobster will just fall asleep in the water. You won't have to worry about the lobster coming to any harm. Now we're ready to cook our lobster. I'm just going to take salt, and I want to take our pan apart here for just a moment. I'm going to pour our salt into the pan. What we have here is a 3-part system. We got the pan. It's, I guess, got about 1.5 inches of water on the bottom of the pan. We have our steamer basket. That's where the lobster will be. We place that in our pan, and then we have the lid portion of our pan. We're just going to place that down here. We have our lobster ready to put in. Let's get started. I'm just going to move our pan over to our cooking surface. I'm going to turn the heat on high. I'm going to take our lobster and we're just going to put him in the pan. Now, what we want to do is we want to make sure that his arms go together. We're going to put him right in the pan. He's moving around just a little bit in there. As the pan begins to heat up, it'll begin to steam. Once that happens, he'll begin to cook. He'll slowly go to sleep. And then he'll begin to turn bright red. When you cook a lobster using this method, once the water begins to come to a boil, it'll take approximately 8 minutes for the lobster to cook fully. Our lobster's turning bright red. That means he's just about done. 2 things we want to remember here. We don't want to overcook the lobster because that'll make the meat rubbery and tough. And we don't want to undercook the lobster because that'll make the meat just really slimy and not very good. When the lobster turns red, we give it 2 or 3 minutes. That way we know that it's cooked all the way through, and we know that it's not going to be overdone. Once we finish cooking our whole lobster, I'm going to show you how to broil lobster tails in the oven. Okay, our lobster's done. He's nice and bright red. I'm just going to turn the heat off. the lid from the pan so you can see. I've removed the lobster from the heat. That way the water can cool down a little bit and I can remove him from the pan. The sound you heard earlier was my phone going off. I set my timer on the phone after the water started boiling for about 4 minutes. That gave the lobster, after boiling started, time to cook all the way through. And yet, again, we didn't want to overcook our lobster. Okay, I've got our tongs. I'm bringing our lobster out. We're going to place him on our pan. And let him cool down. He looks wonderful. While our lobster cools, I'm going to clean up around here and show you how to make lobster tails. Now we're ready to prepare our lobster tails, and they're just as easy to do as that big lobster we just got done preparing. I've put the broiler on and it's going to heat up to 500 degrees. I've got a pair of scissors here, and what I want to do is each lobster tail, and look at those lobster tails. Nice, they're big, and they're beautiful. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these shears and I'm going to start cutting. And I just want to cut right up the middle of that tail. All the way to the back of that tail. I've got a nice cut there, and what I want to do now is I want to pry that open just a little bit. I push on the bottom, right there underneath, right on the underneath side. I'm going to push on it and I'm going to pull on the shell. We don't want to break the shell. What we want to do is just kind of open the shell so that we can bring the meat up, because I'm going to take the meat that's inside. Look at all that meat in there. I'm going to reach under it. Notice I get my thumb right underneath. And I'm just going to pull. We don't want to pull too hard. We don't want to damage the meat. We just want to get the meat loose from its shell. Bring it out and place it on top like that so that it looks nice. We want to make it present well, just like they would in a restaurant. That's beautiful. That looks fantastic. I want to fan it out just a little bit here so that it looks good. And we're going to put it on a baking sheet. Make sure its tail is nice and fanned out. I'm going to do that to the rest of these tails. And then we're going to coat them with a mixture of butter, garlic, lemon, and paprika so that they look as good as they taste. Okay, I've got all our lobsters in the pan, and now we're ready to put a nice mixture of butter, garlic, paprika, and lemon juice on them. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of garlic here. I'm going to put that in our butter. To that, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I'm going to use my little brush here to mix that up really good. Mix it up nice. I want to make sure that mixture just mixes together perfectly. We're going to coat our tails. And we're going to do it liberally. We want to get that on there nice and liberally. Get it right down in the center of those tails. Don't worry if it gets a little messy, that's all right. Right in the center, right in that crease. Then along the sides of that meat. Now here I've got some paprika. It's just ground paprika. And what I like to do is I like to sprinkle the tops of these lobster tails with paprika. It makes them look good, and it adds a little bit of taste to them as well. So we just like to sprinkle that over them. Don't those look spectacular? They're going to taste good too. They're going to taste better than they look. We're going to place them in our broiler at 500 degrees, and for these we're going to go about 8 minutes. We don't want to overcook them. There again, it will make the meat tough. But what we do want to do is make sure that we cook them till they're opaque. I'm going to keep an eye on these lobster tails and make sure that I don't overcook them. Once I see them turn opaque, and that means that you can't see through them anymore, they're kind of a white color, then I'm going to take them out of the oven and check them and make sure that they're completely done all the way through. Okay, our lobster tails are done. I'm just going to pull them out and plate them up. Okay, here's our lobster dinner. I've got it all plated up. We have a beautiful lobster tail, a twice-baked potato, and a steamed ear of corn. I hope I've put your mind at ease about cooking lobster and lobster tails. They're really easy to do, and you can cook them for a quarter of the price as you can going out to eat at some expensive fancy restaurant. You can do it right in the privacy of your own home, where it's romantic, where it's intimate, where it's private, and where it's good. If you've liked our video, like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our videos at YouTube. Visit us at www.appreciatetaste.com. And remember, until next time,